evening, everyone. I hope you're having a very good day. My name is Donna Walker-Kuhn. I'm Senior Advisor, Community Engagement at New Jersey Performing Arts Center. Tonight, our topic is Queer, Black, Trans, Creating Safe Spaces for All Identities. And this virtual panel discussion is with our LGBTQ+ activists. In this panel, we're going to have a very dynamic conversation about the intersection of race, sexuality, identity, and justice, and looking at what does it mean to create safe spaces, and looking at this from the perspective of barriers that we are encountered accessing appropriate health care, increased risk of violence that are faced when they come out as gay, trans, or genderqueer. This discussion this evening is also about important topics that affect the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of our LGBTQ+ community. And the film that we chose to provide really gives us a great understanding and perspective within the lens of the Black community. The film is called Kiki, an award-winning documentary that chronicles the lives of LGBTQ youth of color. I hope you've all had the opportunity to watch this film, which was provided in your RSVP link. This social justice series is part of our Standing in Solidarity initiative. The purpose is to bring our community together and to encourage everyone to take part in the movement to ensure civil rights for all. Since June, NJPAC has presented a series of events and initiatives focused on promoting racial equality, and it's on our website. You can find archived prior social justice panel discussions, as well as resources that can help you to take action. We're also happy to have as our advisors the Newark NAACP, New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, Newark Arts, and the Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation Center at Rutgers University, Newark. NJPAC would like to offer a land acknowledgement. And the language that we're using was created with consultation and guidance from Chief Dwayne Perry of the Ramapo Lenape Munsee tribe and Oleana Whispering Dove of the Eastern Sagali Algonquin descendant. We're grateful to them for the generosity, wisdom, and labor in crafting these words. We, the Lenape, original benefactors of land, once ripened and cultivated with attentiveness to the Creator and her ascendancy, express everlasting gratitude to our Creator for the traditional ancestral jurisdictions of the Munsee, Esopus, Carnacy, Capsea, Werpo, Sawano, and Wakasqueak, jointly known today as the Ramapo and Nanticoke Lenape. We are the Lenape Hoking today and will be for the remaining days of tomorrow, keepers of the past. Let this moment of recognition be a monument of action. Let it be the beginning of hope for this our Turtle Island and for the Ramapo Lenape, the Munsee people of whose land we now trod. Here on this island, in this place of the Munsee, we acknowledge our debt to those who have come before us, to those who have been denigrated and suffered for the sake of cultural and land appropriation. Let this, our land acknowledgement, be the beginning of our return to unity. Let us be guardians of the water, the air, and the earth, the four-legged, the flyers, the swimmers, the crawlers, the mammal people, and the green. Let us now stand lifting our humanity and rapturing with Earth's consciousness as guardians of harmony and kindness. This acknowledgement demonstrates our ongoing commitment as a community working to dismantle the continued legacies of colonialism, oppression, and systemic racism. We offer a pledge of social justice awakening and education in order to raise the level of awareness and to ultimately strengthen the communal fabric, which includes engagement with our Indigenous neighbors. Now, I am very pleased to bring to you Jen Bartoli, who is the Manager of Investigations, General Compliance, and President of PSEG, Pride Employee Resource Group. Jen is also a champion for diversity and inclusion at PSEG in her capacity as the President of the PSEG Pride Employee Business Resource Group. PSEG Pride is dedicated to creating a safe and inclusive work environment where LGBTQ+ employees and allies are recognized, respected, and valued as contributors to a diverse culture within all levels of the organization. NJPAC is very grateful to PSEG for their continued support of our Standing in Solidarity series. Welcome, Jen.
All right, thanks, Donna. Thank you, everybody, and welcome to tonight's event. I'm very proud to be part of PSEG and to be here with you tonight for PSEG True Diversity Film Series. Our company, Public Service, and the PSEG Foundation are pleased to be longtime partners with the New Jersey Performing Arts Center. PSEG was among the earlier supporters of the NJPAC and the True Diversity Film Series, which represents the best of that relationship. This series reflects PSEG's commitment to Newark, where we are more than just another utility and more than just another company. Public Service has made our headquarters in this community for the past century and then some. We'll actually be marking our 118th anniversary later this year. So we're proud of our commitment as citizens of Newark and as citizens of New Jersey. A tremendous part of that commitment is our support for organizations such as NJPAC and what that support means for diversity, for education, and for the arts. Now, last summer, in the wake of the tragic killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis and the demonstrations that followed in cities and communities around the country, PSEG and the PSEG Foundation announced another commitment, the Powering Equity and Social Justice Initiative. This initiative is PSEG Foundation's $1 million commitment to support organizations that address the racial injustice, inequality, and human rights in communities of color in New Jersey, New York, and anywhere where PSEG operates. PSEG has always had a unique and special relationship with the many diverse communities we serve, with Newark being at the top of the list. When one of us is impacted in the PSEG community, we all feel the impact. That's why it's essential that we are all joined together to act and build a framework of equity, compassion, and respect, which will truly benefit all of us. We believe our longstanding support for diversity, for education, and for the arts helps us contribute to that ideal as well. So without further ado, it's my honor to welcome all of you in this important event tonight. Thank you for being here and enjoy the discussion. I'll now turn it back over to you, Donna.
Thank you so much. So now let's get the party started. I'd love to introduce to you our moderator for the evening, Kevin Taylor. Kevin is Senior Pastor of Unity Fellowship Church, Newark. He's an author, television producer, lecturer on themes of empowerment. Kevin has many different titles, former Director of Administration at Turning Point Community Services, Housing and Consumer Service Engagement Manager at the City of Newark, Group Counselor at Essex County LGBT RAIN Foundation, and of course, Senior Pastor at Unity Fellowship Church, Newark. And so we are so delighted, Kevin, that you could be with us to moderate this very important discussion. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you very much, Donna. I am honored beyond words to be here. I think this conversation is so on time and in time. And so thank you to NJPAC and all of your partners, all of the partners who have allowed this conversation, who have created space for this conversation. And I'd like to introduce our brilliant panel of experts and activists and those who will move this conversation forward. I'd like to open the space to each of you as panelists to speak on the trajectory of your journey that has gotten you to your current position. So you can do whatever historical tech context you'd like to where you are presently, and equally to talk to our audience about where you would like this conversation to move toward and what you would where you'd like this conversation to move and what you'd like them to retain from it. It's almost like sharpening ears, if you could. Erica, if you could go first, introduce yourself and tell people who you are and what you do and what you'd like them to retain from this engagement tonight.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Erica Hart. My pronouns are she and they. I am a sexuality educator gender and racial and social justice disruptor. I have been doing this work for the past 11 years or so. I'm also like a plant parent and a bit of a homebody and a Sagittarius. I'm just very impulsive is really what it is. I'm queer and non-binary. I'm a non-binary femme. What do I want folks to retain from this? I think, I really want to lean on the work of Paulo Freire and of the pedagogy of the oppressed, and just what you take from this is what you take from this. I don't want to necessarily control what you take from this. I hope that you walk away either feeling heard or seen, or able to step into who you've always been, but maybe never felt that you could. But in terms of learning, I hope that you take something from it, but I don't necessarily have like, this is what you must take. So thank you. Yeah.
And I thank you. Up next, the brilliant Spirit McIntyre.
Peace, everyone. My name is Spirit Paris McIntyre. Spirit, they, them pronouns. I'm so glad to be here with y'all tonight. I am the compassionate community architect for Transvisible. And Transvisible is a network that uplifts the leadership and leadership development of T, G, and C plus community members, that is transgender and gender nonconforming plus community. And I am hoping that people take away a light bulb, that something lights up when you hear this incredible crew of folks who live at so many different intersections. We are inspiring. I know that I've been inspired by all the conversations leading up to this point, and I hope that something we say unlocks a light bulb that allows people to find even more expression and expansion in their own lives.
Thank you very kindly. Thank you very kindly. Dear friend and associate in the struggle, Amanda Simpson, please come forward. Unmute, Amanda.
Hello, can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Good. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. My name's Amanda Simpson. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I work for HMI in New Jersey. And part of what I do there is find ways to support LGBTQ plus young folks ages 13 to 21. I think a little bit, Kevin, you had talked about our journey here. To be quite frank, I worked in substance use treatment for about 8 years before coming to HMI. And I was never affirmed in my work. And I don't think I affirmed many other people in my work either, just to be quite honest. And so coming here today and doing the things that I've done in the past several years, that's really been my mission, whether it be through professionals in the community, anyone in the community, being able to have that conversation with them to look at how we can create safer spaces. I think I'm a person of color, I'm a queer person, and I wasn't doing my part. And so I think that's part of the journey here, is to continue to see how we can be allies, to see how we can. So that's what I hope that I give for everyone, just that question of that, and also just really looking at, how we show up in spaces.
Wonderful. And last and surely not least, a powerful and poignant voice from the film Kiki that we've enjoyed this tonight, or if you've enjoyed it before. And we were talking before we went live about all of the brilliant things that Gia Love is doing in the community and in the world. So Gia Love, please come forward and let your light shine.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for sharing this space with me and being in conversation with us tonight. I am a model and an activist, particularly centering Black trans women and Black trans folks generally, talking about our stories, talking about my story, using my platform to elevate a conversation and put myself at the forefront to bring my sisters and brothers with me. I am the creator of the celebration of Black trans women cookout. I work for Trans Equity Consultant, where I do capacity building across industries to ensure that trans people have an equitable and representative experience in the workplace, and also access to affirmative services. So we work with many different companies to make sure that happens. I also just executive produce a video project. Well, it's a multimedia project, but for the first part of it that was launched was a media piece, which is called What's Your Fantasy? And basically it is exploring the fantasies of plus size Black trans women and taking on issues of transphobia through our sexy, through our bodies, and really putting our bodies at the forefront of the conversation, which is oftentimes overlooked. So thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to you getting whatever you came here for. And if you don't find that, I hope you keep on looking.
Well said, well said. So there was a question that came out of our original engagement that I'd like to pose to everyone. And as you posed it first, Spirit, I'd like you to answer first. How do we as individuals actively create safer spaces for our community? Each of you will answer, but Spirit, if you could go first. I think it's such a brilliant question.
Thank you. And it's like to pose the question and also to be asked the question first. Yay. One thing that I'm actively doing to be safer space is also acknowledging that it's safer and not safest or safe, right? Because I'm a work in progress and I'm doing a lot of unlearning that has taught me to behave in a lot of different ways that I'm still unlearning, like, ooh, I'm safer, but I may not be the safest space for all of our community members. So acknowledging that it is work, it's ongoing work. And so some of my ongoing work is to not assume the gender of other people, right? It's just one thing. And I was thinking today in the mirror, like, that would be like assuming people's names, right? Not having ever met a person and been like, you're Susie, right? Which would be absurd if you just went around just like, if I went around just like being like, hey, Jonathan, right? To people I didn't know, they would think that was wild. And so I think it's also wild to assume I know something about someone based on anything that I think I might know. And so I think creating safer spaces is just remembering that I'm a work in progress and there's always something to learn, and being willing to be like, oops, I'm not the safest space yet. And I will take that learning, and I thank you.
Very good. Thank you kindly for that. Erica.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for posing that question, Spirit. I think what I'm thinking of is, right before we started, there was the piece about the Derek Chauvin trial. And I was thinking about how we mimic accountability from the state in spaces. So we'll say that this is a safer space, but then how we handle any sort of disruption, not disruption in a good way, but disruption in a way that may be impacting the space in a negative way, how we handle folks who may have caused harm, right? Or multiple people who have caused harm is often done in the same ways that the police state that we've been brought up does. So I feel that even if we are all in community, queer, trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming, we still are behaving like white settler colonialist in actually addressing some of the breakdowns that happen, right? And it's going to be breakdowns that happen. I kind of hate that assumption, but there are going to be breakdowns that happen. There is going to be harm that's caused. So how do you address that without causing more harm? So I think that's the question, and I don't necessarily have the answer, because I too, like in spirit, I'm trying to undo, what I've been taught. I'm trying to undo the fact that the second that I did something wrong, my parents were like, okay, now you are going to be spanked, right? Like that lives in me, where, not that I'm spanking like participants or anything, but like that there's a desire to punish in some way, right? To exclude, to remove from the space, to yell, right? Like really looking at what are some creative ways of accountability. What does accountability actually look like? Because even in the Derek Chauvin trial, that isn't accountability, right? The state cannot, have any sort of accountability for a white person, period, because the state upholds white people, it upholds whiteness. So there's accountability doesn't exist in that. So that is what I'm looking at, is what creates a safer space, right? Beyond pronouns, beyond ensuring that we are not misgendering people, and if we do misgender folks, what then is the accountability process for it, right? What is the process? And a lot of our spaces are housed within, larger nonprofit institutions, where one space is affirming of queer folks, but then once those young people or adults step out into the offices, everyone else is very cis and hetero. So that I think starting with accountability is like, how does that get addressed, right? How do we hold folks accountable? And how are we doing it in a way that is restorative and transformative? I also kind of hate those words right now, because I feel like they are just thrown around and folks have different definitions of what that is. But I think it has to be created in a safer space.
Gia, I know we've got a weighted question, but how do we as individuals actively create safer spaces for our community?
Yeah, like in my experience, I think that leading with love and really is the way to get safety in our communities. I just know that for like as a young person growing up in New York City, it was the times I felt the safest is when people, elders and my peers loved on me and really embraced me for who I am and saw me for the greatest potentials that I had. And we, in our relationships, some of them may have been very complicated. Some of them may have caused, hurt to me. It's the fact that the premise of the relationship was centered in love. And it was how I led and walked through that relationship. And as I engage community, that's at the forefront of what I lead with. When I talked a little bit about the creation of the Celebration of Black Trans Women Cookout that I created that event to basically let the girls have fun and be celebrated. Oftentimes, I know feedback from the community is that the only time we get recognition is when we are murdered. And I wanted to literally, because I was like, yo, I go to so many parties and I never see Black trans women. I am well connected, very visible, and I just don't really share a lot of space with trans women that I don't know personally. So I created a cookout centered and with love and joy at the forefront to give us that safe space. And it was girls twerking, dancing, drinking, just enjoying ourselves in community with love from community, people who are not Black trans women. And we were loving ourselves as well in that moment. So let love lead and create in creating safety.
Now, Amanda, you have the question, and I'd like you, and I expect that you will, given the elegance with which you engage in conversation. But unpack this for us as it relates to your previous statement with respect to not necessarily being in safer spaces or even creating them in previous work or environment. What is that evolution called up in and for you as you help to actively create safer spaces for the community?
Yeah, I mean, I think safety is one of those words that we throw around and we don't really know what it means either, or it means different things to everybody. For me, I think, especially looking at, the evolution of my work, and it really comes down to understanding that it's going to be different for each person in each situation. One instance, a young person got into college and they got their acceptance letter, and you don't know me yet, but I'm very excitable. So I was super excited. I was like, ah! I started flashing the lights on and off. I'm like dancing, and they're just staring at me like, what happened? And like, I realized I made them so unsafe, but like, also I have to be authentic me, and like I was very excited for them. So I think it's simple things like that, even where we don't realize, just us being us, and maybe it's whatever that is in me that has me flicking lights out of excitement, right? Whatever you want to call it. But it's about really understanding the space that we take up, and how we affect that and what we do after that. And afterwards I checked in, I'm like, and they were like, yeah, I know you're just, you're excitable, I get it, right? But really having to unpack that for that individual, and why someone maybe wouldn't be super excited to get into a school that they were excited to go to, and all of that underneath there. So yeah, I think safety is also, it's emotional safety. It's being able to be happy, be excited, be sad, be angry. Like how many of us can be angry in public and feel safe? I'll wait. Like how many of us can be happy in public and feel safe? Because people look at me weird when I'm like dancing around and driving, but I'm just happy. So I really think it's about understanding the different levels of safety. Trust. How can we find trust in our communities? Trust that you are going to take care of me like you said you would, and that if you can't, like I'll have some sort of information about that. Trust that when we make a commitment, trust that things are going to be equitable. Trusting in the institutions that are here to educate us and police us and healthcare, like trusting in these places. I think it's about collaboration. How much have we collaborated with these safe spaces? How much do we get collaboration in our homes or in our schools or in our community or in our workplaces? When I came to work at HMI, this was the first place I've been out at work. This was the first time I've been actually understanding my privilege and understanding who I am and be able to put words on it. And so just lining up to get into the NJPAC, and I'm looking at your beautiful summer series. Like I never really did art. I never really did STEM growing up. And part of that was because it was not for people who looked like me. Like those pictures that we used to see when I was a kid, I wasn't on there. And I was just like, oh, it's going to be too hard or too weird or too different. And it wasn't for me. So I think these are the ways that we create safe spaces, like representation, of course, but just being mindful of what we say, just acknowledging it. I think this idea that we can get to a part with no racism or no homophobia or no trans, I don't know if that's possible. I think it's just a matter of saying when we do, oh my goodness, I'm sorry, and thank you for helping me see that. Like I think that's more so the goal of a safer space. We make mistakes. We don't know everything. It's what we do when we're faced with some new information that matters the most.
Thank you, Amanda. And I want to unpack this just a little more if I could, because and I appreciate so much about the conversation with respect to the respective privileges in which we sit as a cisgender, very tall, very broad man. I walk into rooms very mindful of my patriarchy, very mindful of my presence, very mindful that my voice even has its own privilege. How do we make sure we create spaces, each of you, and I'm gonna ask you first, Erica, because you unpacked the thing for me, where and I'm trying to make it not where it's not shady, it's a slip. Like if I said, brothers and sisters, and someone said, well, shouldn't that be brothers and sisters and siblings? Is that it, or do I just say siblings? Like, because Niecy Nash has come out recently, or come forward recently in her love relationship with Jessica Betts, who's always been a lesbian identified woman. And she says, I didn't get an instruction manual. I'm still mad at y'all. Where is it? But there's some times when we assume that we're supposed to know everything about each other, and we leave no space for grace. I'd like to know when help me with help me with, is it brothers and sisters and siblings? I've also heard from some trans women, when I say the general statement, like I worked hard for sister, I'd like to know that I'm your sister, that you've not taken from me the compassion and the identity of having done the work to become your sister, having created a space where you see me as your sister and not a sibling. And so I just want us to unpack that space of grace so that we can have some teachable room with one another. I'm pretty sure I'm senior and elder to everybody on the panel. And so there are new conversations even yet to be had inside the house. Erica, how do we handle those? Or what kinds of ways can we handle those conversations that are not shade, but a shift?
I think that the conversations around grace oftentimes center people who are most privileged. And
come on with it.
It's like, I don't know the words to say, so how can I have grace in learning, in understanding? But it's like, you have to get to know the people that you're speaking to, right? It's going to be different every time. And that's the case for any group, right? It's not just the case for trans and non-binary people right there. I think that there's even cis people who don't want to hear, hey guys, right, as a generalized addressing, right? You know what I mean? I think that there are folks who are like that, and it is trans people, in particular trans women who have been like, Black trans women who have been like, I don't want to be addressed as guys, right? I don't want that, right? But it was just happened to be that trans women were the folks that spoke up about it. But that doesn't mean that it's that you shouldn't check in, right? And I think if you are the person that's holding the space for that particular group, that you be mindful of, like you said, of your privileges, but then that you are treating it particularly anyway. I think it's important if we're speaking about cis, hetero, able-bodied people, that you're constantly doing that, not just doing the check-in when you're around queer and trans people, because it always sounds awkward. It's always strange. It doesn't come off like you've actually been practicing this. It comes across as you're assuming that all cis people want to be addressed in a particular way, but now you're amongst queer and trans folks, and all of a sudden all the rules have changed. And I just don't think that that's the case. There's nuance and fluidity in gender across all genders, not just with trans and non-binary folks. There's fluidity with cis folks as well. As a person that studies gender and talks a lot about gender, cis folks, it's quite boring and made up in a lot of ways, but it's important that they get expansiveness and understand how created their identity is, not set in stone. So the asking of the questions has to be for all groups, right? Not just when you come here. And I just don't think, because who is giving the grace, right? Is it marginalized communities who are giving the grace? Right? Why do we have to give grace? Right? Why can't we just be mad? Right? Like you said, what did you say? Shade or
shift.
Shade or shift, right? Why can't it just be shade? What's wrong with that? Right? What's wrong with just some shade? You're gonna learn, right? You're gonna learn not to do it again. Right. So I don't think that my life is not a teachable moment. Right. I think you have to go read a book, right, and go educate yourself. And I'm an educator. So when I'm in educating space, come with it. Let's all learn together. But beyond that, right, I can't constantly be teaching, right? I got to just live my life, right? If I'm partying, I'm at the club and you're like, wait, how do how do I get on the mic and talk to everybody at the club as the DJ? It's like, no, you just chat my hide, right? Like, I don't want to educate you right now. So I think that privileged folks have to do that work, and stop expecting marginalized folks to, explain everything to them. I think it's quite, this is a stigmatized word, but it's just quite lazy, I think.
But I think that's the imperative in it, because it has the capacity to jolt people inside of an overall marginalized community to do the work inside the house, so that, I'm clear about my pronouns, I'm clear about my engagement, and I don't have to, you don't get to, like, there is no special sub course to be able to come in and say, girl, help me with this. No, you do the work, because everybody should be doing, though everybody is on the journey to do the work, not, hey, slip me some cheat notes.
100%. And it's all about, you don't want to mess up, right? You don't want to look bad. And
Right.
It's important that you're likely going to look bad, and that's okay. Right? It's okay if you look bad, right? It's important that you look bad and then you're corrected and you let it go. You don't take it personally and do something horrible.
Yeah, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
Spirit, would you like to add to that? Because y'all are lighting up this chat.
Yeah, it's so something Erica said, the part about like who is giving the grace, right? Because it's like, oh, so I just got grace in this bag and grace in this bag and in my wallet and then in my backpack and then in the trunk of my car and then under my hat and then in my shoes and in my socks, right? I just have all this grace.
I carry everything and a bunch of grace.
Also, that grace looks a certain way, because it is graceful when somebody gives you a side eye, right? When somebody gives you a full effect, right? When they give, right? That's grace too. And it might be grace when somebody throws a hand, and it might be grace when somebody's like turns around from you and sits down and says nothing to you, right? And it might be grace when people are shading you heavily. Because
check this out.
If one, like I'm part of this, it's like a transgender education group where folks, where cis folks can come and be educated. And, a lot of folks will be like, tone, like all about tone policing, which is when you are trying to come for someone about the ways that they're speaking. And you're like, well, if I just made a mistake, and if you could just say it kinder, nicer, sweeter, gentler, right? When it's like, actually, you're just, child, are you trying to learn? Because if you're trying to learn something, then learn. And it might come a variety of ways. And that's not to say I can't choose a tone. I choose my tones, right? And sometimes the tone is going to be a certain way. And are you here to learn, right? Or are you here to judge my tone, right? And so I think, yes, to shade and shift. Yes,
Boom.
shift over shade, shade over shift, whenever we want to mix it up. And it also, I think there also has to be a space where a person is actually there to do the work. If I am there to do the work, then I'm not going to be like, look, I hurt you. And because I hurt you and I want you to be soft with me, that's the imperative. You should be soft with me, when it's really like, I hurt you. And that could be, I might then receive anything. And if I want to also be in a space of accountability with you, I'm going to take that work, the hurt piece, and do that work somewhere else, because I want to center the learning. I want to center doing better. I want to center being a safer space. I don't want to center, right? Like, but you should be graceful with me because what? Right? As the imperative, as the only way to be, which is so anti-Black, right? As if Black people can't give you, as if grace don't come, like as if this is not grace, right? Because then we're doing that thing where it's like, and your neck was moving and you were angry and I was scared, and right, these ways of just being like, just that flatten us out, and is anti-Black, right? And oppressive, and just tells us you can't have the full range of your experience, because then somebody's going to accuse you of doing something you're not doing, and then we're going to decenter the actual problem and make me a problem or my response a problem, right? It's just like, keep it moving, right? Keep it moving. So.
And I want to thank both of you. I'm going to come to the others as well, but I want to thank you because what was important for me in the conversation is making sure that people understand that what I'm talking about is the difference between kind of a space of grace, which you both unpack, like you got that wrong, but now let's fix it. That's grace, because like you said, it could have popped off. And graceful, which is this kowtow, you got it all wrong and you should have known. No, it's grace, kind of like, thanks. You know, we've talked in our earlier engagement with respect to myself as a 56-year-old man being in a room with a number of young people, and for the first time meeting or hearing orally them, they, and those of theirs as pronouns, and unpacking the history for me where DL, closeted broken men, spoke of the they were dating because they couldn't find them. They couldn't say he out of their mouths to literally save their lives. And so there was they. And so we had a really nice, and I believe Adam, and Amanda was there, we had a really great intergenerational conversation where it was kind of like, it was one opening of a call me by my name. So yay, I like being in the room when I get to be Kevin, not titular. And secondly, thank you for helping me with that and for hearing me. And it just made for that's the best conversation. But there was smoke. There was no heat, but there was real smoke in it because we let ourselves, as you said, I thank you for that. We let ourselves be Black in the dialogue. There was that kind of conversation so that we could say, I want to make sure I'm being seen and heard, which is a real imperative in this conversation. Gia, what do you have to add to this discourse?
Yeah, I think that it's always shade. And the thing is that there's always a lesson in shade, you know what I mean? And we have, like you said, to not be, to shade, for shade not to be customary in our Black experiences. That's like how we grow up, especially as queer people. Like I grew up, you know what I mean? This created the armor around me to be able to confront this really oppressive world. But I think that, trans people generally who go through a lot of the assortment of issues, it's okay for us to be angry and upset and really be tired of not being seen, or like what Spirit said in the beginning, I think we need to normalize just like meeting a person and getting to know everything about the person and experiencing them for who you meet in that moment, rather than what you think about them. And I think that when we get to a place of like a non-binary place of those type of relationships, then we can really learn about each other, and learn how to really have relationships with people that are fit for that person, and able to really show up for people in the ways that they need to be shown up for. And I think that the violence that, I feel if someone mispronouns me is 30 years of trauma, and particularly 10 years of liberation that I feel like I have to confront in that moment. And I think that when people focus more on my reaction than the problem, we get nowhere. And, I think that what everyone was saying about doing the work, people create a resume to get a job, or they go to a job training, and they do these things because they need to, but also they do these things because they care to. A lot of the times, or they have to. And I think that if you're going to be in community and in space with people who are different, hopefully people would care to learn about the people and do the work that they need to do, because a lot of people, including myself, including people like Erica, Spirit, all of us on this panel, we have platforms and we share our lives with people, and people follow us. And I hope they're not following me for no reason, because there's a lot of work, mental work, and a lot of pressure. So I implore people in doing that work to utilize the resources that are out there. You know, it's 2021, you know what I mean? People, there's in all sorts of ways you can learn, the ways that work for you, right? And if you're not comfortable with having like a friend, you know, because you shouldn't just rely on like the people in your close circle, but there are actual people out there who are doing this work and who have created the resources that you need. So I think that's where we need to go.
Indeed. Amanda.
Yeah, I mean, I hope this is the right place to say this, but I think speaking from the cis perspective, you know, I was misgendered once at a ShopRite. Someone called me sir, and I genuinely still think about that moment, and it boils my blood. And I think about my privilege that I had one moment in my life, and I cannot imagine what it was like to have countless moments of that. And I just think for cis people to recognize, if that's ever happened to a cis person, how that feels. And you know what happened as soon as I turn around, that person, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. You know what I mean? Like, and I got that back, and I'm still pissed off about it. Excuse me, sorry. You know what I mean? I don't think anyone who hasn't had their identity challenge in that way can understand what it's like. And I don't think anyone who's had their identity challenged to that extent can understand what it's like. And I just think we have to accept that and stop fighting it and stop fighting that people's true stories that they're telling us, these wonderful, beautiful spirits who are telling us. Like, I just don't understand how we just continue to deny someone's existence and deny someone's experience. When we talk about pronouns, I think we need to talk about, and all of the gender neutral terminology, how important our society and our culture makes these names. I joke around, if I ever get a doctor, you best believe you're gonna call me doctor. Why not?
Yeah,
If I get married or divorced, you're gonna change your names too. And when you mess up, you're gonna correct it appropriately and apologetically. Of course, why wouldn't you? So why is anything different here and now? I just think if we're saying we're an ally, we have to say we're allies. And you know what? If we're not, then say that too. At least I know what I'm dealing with. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be mad at it if you're like, this is an unsafe space. Got you. Thank you. And not for stores or things like that, but at least for people, because at least I know what I'm coming up with. At least I know what I'm coming up against, and we can point it out and see what we're up against. I don't think it's that hard to just listen to someone and find validity in what they're saying. And I think at the end of the day, that's that. Whatever my name is my name, you know, whatever my pronouns are, they're my pronouns. And I think understanding for me, personally, my struggle is gender doesn't mean that much to me, period. And I have to recognize that it means the world to other people. And I have to be able to reconcile that every day in the work that I do, you know, and that's okay. It's okay to understand that something that's so important to someone else's identity really doesn't mean that much to mine. And I have to be able to look at the privileges and the oppression involved with that, the pieces that led me to this place. The biggest thing that I say real quick with HMI New Jersey is that, you know, we provide services to everyone. As long as you're supportive of the mission, as long as you're going to be, you know, friendly and accepting, anyone can come in, and everyone has a gender identity and sexual orientation, not just gay, trans, GNC folk. Everybody does. And everybody, I believe, has a lesson to learn, has some growth there, has some things to reconcile, has had some issues feeling fully their gender, feeling fully who they are. And if we're not having those conversations, not only are we not creating safety within ourselves, but we definitely can't create safety for the TGNC community and the LGBTQ plus community at large. Like, we have to figure it out within ourselves, be able to reconcile what gender means to us and how gender has influenced or kept me out of places or promoted me into places. And once we have those conversations, then we can start to listen.
And so this is the question. I'm probably gonna it's gonna feel as though I'm dropping it in like a bomb and running, but I'm stay right here. Having with all that so many of you said that you've unpacked in this conversation, how do we unravel the intra-community conflicts of safety? You said if you're not an ally, just say it. Is that why we're so siloed sometimes? And it's the gays here, the lesbians here, because it's like I'm gonna say girl and I don't care. I'm gonna say boy and I don't care. And like and we keep telling the world to be mindful of our we keep telling portions of places to tell us to be mindful, and in other portions there's almost this assumed past. but we've really got to be connected to this inside the house, because Gia, in the movie, that moment on the panel felt, as we were talking about it felt almost like a setup. Like there was a moment when the discourse felt like, I get to say this. And it was a moment where I was most called to pause because I wanted to fight. I was like, you're making, that's my sister. The fact that you're trying to go anywhere else is a moment of ugliness. That would take me to the streets, and I'm a preacher. How do we deal with these conflicts inside the house where we can be flushed off and flipped off when we try to say, hey, be mindful, be present, be connected, be family? So G, I want you to start that because that panel shook me in the movie.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a lot of community healing and like across identities. And like, I feel like for me, like, when you talked about safety, I always ask this question. It's a rhetorical question for me. And I always say, where can I go and feel safe? And as a Black trans woman, and I don't know where I can go because everywhere I go, I always question my safety, even unless I'm with certain people, right? Certain people. But like, I can't go no place. There's no place I can go. And to your question, particularly, I just think that we create this LGBTQ plus community, whatever that means to people, but in the same breath, people are not acknowledging their privilege and how they show up in society and the experiences that these groups have. People are not acknowledging the patriarchy that goes on within the community. People are not acknowledging the sexism, the transphobia. And I think the only way that we can get to a place of having these conversations is if people go through some healing journeys within themselves, and then we can have a healing experience with community, because it's just a lot of self-hatred that allows people, that makes it so that it's easy for people to hate our community, because a lot of us have been conditioned to hate ourselves. So I think that when we engage in a healing experience and kind of unlearn and think about why do I feel like this when I'm around, I'm gonna just use the butch queen term because I'm a ballroom girl. So butch queens, why do I feel like this? Or why do they make me feel like this? Why do Black trans women make me feel like this? And unlearn that and work on that within yourself. And then you will be able to engage in healthy relationships with community. That's what I try to do, and try to have friends and people close to me that are representative of our entire community and have these conversations. I think that one thing we struggle with in community and Black community and Black queer community is sometimes having conversations about the things that make us uncomfortable, and our historical traumas that we have caused each other. And I think that that's going to be the first step to our healing as a community, when we can really move towards a path of atonement. And a lot of experiences, a lot of us have bad experience with community.
That's good. Spirit, please jump in.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Gia. In thinking about this in the house, and when saying in the house, talking about within LGBTQ community or outside the house, the reality is it's the same. Ooh. Outside and inside the house, right? You don't get one of the letters or several of the letters, because we can be many letters at one time. You don't get the letter jacket and then suddenly you're cool, right? Oh snap, I got my letter and now I'm free from patriarchy and oppression, and I left transmesia behind, and now I'll never do that again. I'll never say a hateful thing. And now, and then, I won't be ableist, and then, fat phobia, what is that? I don't even know about that. And it's like, we don't get to leave any of that behind. And so I think I know that there's some members of our community that conflate grabbing a couple of these letters with, and then I've done the work, when it's like, you haven't done any work, right?
Ooh.
You've done nothing, honey, right? Because it's also like not exotic to be in the family, right? It's like, no, you're just you're family, like, yeah. So work on your patriarchy, work on your, like, there's still stuff to work on, and you have your letters. So there's that. And then also a second thing, like, Gia, I really appreciate you saying some of us have had some bad experiences within community. And I had an experience where I had a Black trans woman whom I've been in community with, and we've been building community together, tell me that I didn't know what it was to be a sister, and I was talking about, like, wait, I was giving my opinion about, like, well, I have a sister, and I've been a sister most of my life, and some things that we're talking about right now don't feel like the kind of quality of, don't feel good to me in my experience of sisterhood. And I'm like, I was just like, I'm pushing back a little bit here about this person who is kind to some members of our community, but
Ooh.
maybe not kind to gender nonconforming folks. And we're calling her sister and uplifting the ways that she's behaving. But I'm like, I'm pushing back against that. And I was told, right, that because I identify as a transgender, gender expansive, non-binary person, don't know nothing about it. And I was just like, ew, like, untrue, actually, not facts, actually, harmful, actually, disgusting, actually. Like, I have all of my experiences in the room, and I'm speaking as a multifaceted, intersectional person. And I am saying that that person who you are seeking to uplift as an example of sisterhood is not being kind to members of our gender nonconforming community. And also that means that that person may also turn around and not be kind to you if you're not performing your gender in certain ways. So it's just like, how dare you tell me that I don't know nothing about sisterhood? I'm like, huh? What? Right? I've spent like 37 years doing sisterhood. Like, so I'm like, I got these experiences too. So I really think about that level of being in community with each other, where I'm not trying to take anything from someone, and someone's not trying to take anything from me, or scribing me to a certain thing because of how I identify. I was so hurt by that. And I was like, where can I go to talk about this? Because I felt like I couldn't, and I couldn't, because I was being looked at as if, see, you don't get it. And I was just like, no, you don't get it. You don't get it, because you're not making space for my experience. And you don't want to hear about my experience. You don't want to hear about the fact that someone you are uplifting, right, and putting on a pedestal of sisterhood, which, like, please don't put people on pedestals, but you're putting this person on a pedestal of sisterhood, and anything to the contrary of your experience is not welcome. And it's like, boo, right? Because what then if you've had an experience with someone I call deep friendship, and you're like, Spirit, that person said some hurtful things to me, and I'm like, well, I didn't experience it, so I deny you. I would be called a certain thing and maybe banished in certain ways. So I feel like that's, like, really, as Gia said, like, making more room within to really have these challenging conversations that are not about any one of us being right, because we are all welcome, right? That's just like, we're nuanced, we're highly intersectional, and making space for that intersectionality, so that we are all experiencing greater safety, not pitting our safety. Well, they're good for us, boo. I'm like, until they're good for you, until, honey, don't you hear it? Don't you, until ... Or maybe they wouldn't have been good to you 5 years ago, right? Or maybe if you had to stop taking hormones, they would stop being good to you. Or all of these ways that are like, that are not actually completely inclusive and spacious. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Spirit. Erica, I feel like I haven't heard your voice in a while. Come loudly.
I think the only thing I was just going to add to what has already been said, and thank you, Spirit and Gia, was in particular, Black queer space. I think that desire is challenging. I think that we mimic a lot of the desires of whiteness in our spaces, where there's a desire for a thin, light-skinned, able-bodied, 2C hair textured person. Or a masked person, right? There's a very strong ephimophobia in our communities, a deep hatred, misogynoir for Black folks. So I think that is something that is always jarring to me, where I come, unfortunately, sometimes with the assumption like, oh snap, I'm in community, I'm at this space, this is cute, and nobody is feeling me. Like, that sucks, right? Like, that, it's like we love each other to an extent, right? And I'm a person who is divorced. I was married to a white person. So there is a unlearning that I've had to do, even in my own queerness, of like, I'm with this white person, and that means that my queerness and my Blackness is whole, right? I am real now. So when I divorced, it was like, oh shit, I have been, oh God, I've had some unlearning to do. So now once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Come on.
So when I'm in space and people are like, oh, that's who I'm attracted to, and I'm not attracted to this, or I don't want to be with them, or I'm not interested in them, or this person is, I'm always single, nobody is ever attracted to me. Like, we have to do work in our desirability, right? Even in our, I think about Fatima Jamal, who's doing a Black trans femme, who's doing a film called No Fats, No Femmes, right? Like that, talking about how on Grindr, folks literally have that in their description, right? Like, their desirability has to be talked about, how we are mimicking what, we've inherited about what is attractive or not, right? It's a hot mess. So that's what I think about in terms of how we separate, and the sexuality part, right? Is gender, yes, but we all have a sexuality, and what does that look like? Who are we then attracted to? What do they look? Do they have a look, right? So yeah, that's what I just wanted to add.
That's like adding chicken to the grease. Thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you. So Amanda, if you have something you'd like to bring forward with respect to that this conversation, I open the floor to you. But I'm also mindful that I don't want you always in this last spot. So I want to give you the next question first, and if you want to add something from the last, you have that as well. How can parents, guardians, teachers, mentors be safer spaces as we expand this conversation? Not from a teaching, but an exempling, kind of aspirational, inspirational. I want to meet the family that I can help walk into production, that I can help write a book, that can see me as not trying to in any way, be, offering platitudes, but rather here, use my life for your good, because I'm older than you and I've been through some stuff. How do we create those spaces? But if you have something you'd like to add from the last, please do so as well.
I don't know how valuable this is, but I really appreciate what you share, Erica. I feel in solitude with you because I'll never forget. It was like I was about 23 years old, young little Amanda. I'm like, okay, you're gonna go out to a lesbian club. Like, let's do this. Like, put your game face on. I went out by myself, and not nobody approached me the whole night. And I looked cute, sat there, nursed my drink all night, and I didn't also myself did not approach anyone. And then I went and got a white boyfriend for a few years. So I definitely feel you on that. I feel you on that. And it just washed all back on me on that. Like, it's a thing and we need to address it. So I really appreciate that. And in regards to parents and community creating spaces, I think it's a lot of what you just said. I think, you know what, I look at what is our philosophy of parenting? What is our philosophy of teaching? Have we sat down and kind of have an idea of the way with which we're doing this thing? You know, are we parenting to stamp? Are we parenting to just have replica of ourselves? And if we are, again, just call it out. Just like, to me, I feel like it's all about honesty. And if that's how you're parenting, just be honest. Are we parenting? Are we creating a community to allow for differentiation, to allow people to take on values that are dissimilar to ours, to allow people to take on identities that are dissimilar to ours, to allow people to explore the world? And I think it's a matter of understanding that our education system teaches, this much out of, this much, understanding that our experiences are this much out of this much in the world. And really being able to, especially being 2021, we have the ability to explore more. We have the ability to see, to learn more, to get more information. So I think it's a matter of understanding, how are we parenting? A lot of the young folks at HMI, they come through and it's like, oh, well, I'm goth and that's not accepted because I'm a Black kid from Newark. Or, I like K-pop. And it's like all of these little, and I shouldn't say little, meaningful sub-identities and subcultures that exist that are super connected to who these individuals are. And whether we're, especially the youth, we write them off as phases, we write them off as they don't know what they're being influenced. And, we write people off instead of just acknowledging that this is who you are. And that's how we start, by creating a safe space. Start with accepting what's in front of you and having a clear trajectory of where you want to go. This is our family values. These are our school values. This is the core content that we're going to be learning. Great. Now we're on the same page. But if we're not, just being able to accept who's in front of us, and what makes them special, the fact that some students are going to perform better than others, some students are going to write better than others, we have to really understand that just acceptance is the foundation for progress, in regards to our identities, in regards to who we are.
Gia?
So parenting is like a very
Well, so Gia, and I'm offering this to you in this space. This is a 30-year television producer at BET. I've got 10 books. Creatively, how can I mentor you and create safe space? Because this is not just a parenting conversation. I want to know how I create safe space to a family member without thinking, there's something to it, not without knowing you're not safe. How do I invite you to all of the parts of me in community safely and soundly, so you can get from me what you need? I got some stuff you need. How do I pass it on?
Right. I think that, well, I know that like a lot of times people say like they love you, but they don't know what that means, right? They don't know what loving a person unconditionally means. And oftentimes there are conditions on the way people want to invite, want to help. Like, like when you say like, who you are, like, I was at a party this weekend and someone told me what he did. And I noticed that he didn't really exchange information with me, but he exchanged it with the cute boy. I don't think I was his cup of tea, so he didn't like really want to like build a relationship with me, which was fine, but it was just an observation I had, like, why didn't he connect with me? Like, why didn't we exchange information? And I would say because like, he was an elder and, potentially could have been I could have been resourceful to him, and vice versa, he could have been resourceful to me. So I think that like sometimes in our community, those politics of desirability play a very large role in how we develop relationships, mentorships in our community. But that's why I think that even when you're talking about like the biological family structure, it saddens me when like the thing that oftentimes causes the most fracture in a lot of queer people's family is the fact that they're LGBTQ plus, like nothing else. And nothing that will like, you could be the president of the United States of America and you still will never be whole because you're trans or because you're gay. And I think that we need to redefine what love means, right? And we need to to me, love transcends who I am. Like if you're my mother and you love me, then it should not matter who I am. And if you love me, I would hope that you would want to know me and really understand me. And like we were talking about with people who we are engaging, like that we don't know, like, even though you gave me a name, when you when you birthed me, I renamed myself. So who am I? And even if people decide to keep the name that they were assigned at birth, who am I? And I think that discovery, learning people, not for who you wanted me to be, but for who I am, brings forth the quality relationships and the healthy parental relationships that oftentimes are lacking in community because those politics of desirability are what guides relationships and mentorship relationships.
Ooh, come on. Spirit, talk while your hands are moving. Go ahead.
I mean, Gia has not come out of the pulpit since the beginning of this. She has not come out the pulpit. Pastor just won't come out the pulpit. And I thank you. So I wrote down two things. So what I heard Gia talking about is sexually commercing. When we meet people and we're like, right, where we set up these things where it's like we're exchanging with people for some reason, right? And like where it's like, oh, I'm only here to sexually commerce. So who am I looking to sexually commerce with? Oh, I can do that with you, as if other people are there to solely sexually commerce with you, right? And so those ways of like value where it's not about, I'm here to engage with people who enliven my spirit, who challenge. Maybe I feel super nervous, right, about someone across the room, and I'm like, yo, I feel mad nervous about that person. Sometimes I just challenge myself to be like, go say hi, spirit. And I'm like, what's up, right? I'll pretend like I'm the host. I'll pretend like I'm the host of the event, because if I'm hosting it, we're cool, right? So sometimes I challenge myself to that because I'm like, why are you nervous? Because there's something there for me, right? Whatever it is, there's something there for me. Maybe I need to fall flat on my face, or like, maybe they'll be like, yo, cool. And be like, hey, oh my gosh, we're here together. Are you awkward? I'm awkward. Like, let's eat snacks, whatever that is. So stop sexually commercing people in these ways that then don't allow people to actually don't allow you to be like, yo, I was having a great conversation with that person. Why did I put some parameters in my mind, body, spirit in place that may not be real, that may have been given to me by patriarchy, right? That I maybe have not gone deeply into because I'm staying on this like sexually commercing and I'm not going any deeper than that. So that's one. Two, and I'm going to talk about babies, but this is also not simply parenting. It's like a concept and a way of thinking that has been coming to me more and more and more and more. So somebody has a baby. Oh my gosh, it's a baby. What kind of baby is it? A baby, right? A human baby. So it's a 1-month-old human baby, right? So the ways that we will say, well, what kind of baby? Meaning that I want to know what your baby's genitals look like, which is creepy. It's creepy. It's creepy. right? It's creepy because now I want to know what kind of genitals does your baby have, but I'm not really saying that. But I'm saying, is it a this or that, when it's like, it's a baby. It's a baby. Oh, don't put pink on the baby. What are you talking about? The baby
Right.
can't even see colors yet, right? It's like, shh. So I think, so I'm saying, like, if we took that and went farther with that, we allowed babies to be babies. We allow babies to tell us who they are. They'll tell us, oh, I love crinoline. I'm not with that crinoline. I like this skirt. I don't like that skirt. Put these tights on. Child, I'm with these sneakers. Give me them, you know, like the babies will tell you, put this kind of bow in my hair. Oh my gosh, I like when my nails are colored like that. I like carrying this purse. The babies will tell you, and then the babies become toddlers, become young people that continue to tell you, right? What is it they're telling you? Are you telling them? That's not how it works, right? Why are you telling the baby, you don't like strawberries and you're gonna like red and you're gonna like, right? It's unnecessary because the baby has an agenda, came with an agenda, written by the ancestors. Like, I'm good, okay? If y'all could just get out of my way and let me tell you how it is, right? So as a parent, this could apply. As somebody's uncty, UNCTY, a term I love, uncty.
I'm using that forward.
I'm an uncty, right? Not an auntie or an uncle. I'm an uncty. Then if I am like, oh, so-and-so is going to tell me who they are. So if so-and-so changes their name tomorrow, cool, because so-and-so been telling me who they are. I haven't been telling them. Oh, so-and-so started doing this with their body and their body looked like this. Cool. Well, that's cool because they are continuing to tell me. So I feel like we can take that space with one another, and then we don't have this, well, you were going to do these things. When was I going to do those things? When did we touch and agree upon all the things that you imagined in your mind that I would do once you found out or made some purpose in my genitals as a baby, when I was just a baby, being a baby, and then you're moderating my whole life, as opposed to like, honey, let me tell you. No, I'm going to keep telling you, and you keep telling me. I'll keep asking, you keep telling me, I'll keep telling you. Then we're telling each other and we're learning about each other, as opposed to like trying to make blueprints that don't make no sense. And then be like, well, you didn't what? And then be all in our feelings that nobody wants our blueprint.
Come
Nobody
on.
asked you for that. Nobody asked you for that. A waste of time. You could have just asked me this whole time. Let me tell you who I am.
Let me tell you who I
Tell
am.
me. That's
Thank
how
you.
it works. So, you know, you're a teacher, you're a parent, you're an auntie, you're nibbling, whoever you are, let the people from the time they're a baby till their time they're a more grown baby tell you what it is. Don't tell me what it is. And we'll be
Indeed.
good.
We'll be good. So if G is the preacher of the hour, then surely Erica's the shaman. I'll have you wrap that up, and then you're each going to come forward and just do closing statements of about a minute apiece. I'll leave you to do that space. I'm concerned that I might drop out, but I'm on my computer and my voice will come in. So, shaman, Erica, take the floor, queen.
Lord, oh my gosh. Final words. I think I'm actually in the process of expanding my family. So I've been thinking a lot about children and childbirth, and also healing my wounds from being a child and with my parents. And oh gosh, it is just hard work. Like, it is just so challenging. I think as a Black person, and also as a Black queer and trans person, it is even more challenging to do healing work around the wounds of our parents. I think the thing that I'll leave folks with is that I find that our families regard queer and trans folks like our identities, like who we are, is not valid until they see it as
Oh.
valid.
Yeah.
And when they see it as valid, then we are real. But as long as they don't believe it, then we don't really exist. And I'll tell you that my family, my extended family, is Pentecostal and just incredibly religious. Like, I was anointed like pretty much every week, olive oil all running down my face, and my aunt's praying over me and all this stuff. So when one of my cousins outed me, like, because I saw my stuff online, my family didn't talk to me for like 10 years, my extended family. So now they're coming in my life a bit more, and they're asking me for things, right? They're asking me for resources, asking me for money, but that is the extent of our relationship, right? I don't care about what Erica is doing, what she wants to do with, her life, or because her life is not real. It's just what can you do for me? Right? Can you care for me? Yeah, okay, cool. You're queer. You're in my life. Okay, what can you do for me? I don't have any interest in what you got going on. Right? I'm not really interested. I don't get it. Right? That's what people will say. Right? Back to kind of what you were speaking to, Kevin, that what frustrates me is like providing all this grace for folks who, quite frankly, just don't care. Right? Like, you don't actually give two shits about me. You're not actually trying to learn anything. You're just trying to take, which we are in a very much a transactional environment, state, right? It's all about what you can take from people. And we do that to our family members. And I don't know what that's called, but that's something that I've been sitting with as people who are homophobic and transphobic and are in my family and still in my life, still want to take from me and disregard every other part of me. They might not be openly homophobic and transphobic. They may be tolerating who I am, but they don't actually care about all of me. And that's a hard lesson that I've been really sitting with. And I don't know if that's a good thing to leave people with or not, but I think it's important to note that this work is ongoing. Healing is not linear, right? There's always something that's coming up, which is unfortunate. Like, I just wish it could just be healed and we move on, but it's but one thing you heal, the next thing pops up and you're like, oh my Lord. So yeah, it never goes away. It's always some work to do. And what a blessing that is, that you get to realize it and work on it. And, call yourself out on stuff and call other people out on it too. And set your boundaries on what you want and what you need in these relationships.
Thank you. And that answers a question that was hovering with respect to how do we practically work forward with the Black family and acceptance. Like, it's ongoing work. There is no dust to be sprinkled. So I'm going to do Amanda and then Spirit and then last word to Gia, just in case I drop off visually. You see me kind of already coming in audibly. So Amanda, please.
Yeah, just thank you so much for having me in this space tonight. I definitely appreciate it and I acknowledge the privilege of being here. I think in closing, it is just, and also in answering that question, the practical application. I'm one, and people may agree or disagree with this technique, but I like to take identity out of it and replace it with different identities and then see if it still seems okay or not. So like, if we replace gender with race, does it feel a little uncomfortable? Well, then maybe it should also feel uncomfortable with gender. If we replace age, if we replace socioeconomic status or religion, because I think people are used to or just have more visibility with having relationships with people of different religions or races versus genders outside of the binary or LGBTQ folk in general. And so I think if we look at it that way, and I know, again, like, this may not work for everybody, but a practical application, well, what if my child was choosing to become a different political affiliation than me and choosing to become out like that? Would I cast them out of the house? I hope not, and how might I have those conversations with them? What if my child was choosing to become vegan, and these are lower identities, I would say, than some of the core identities that we talk about, but it's real. What if my child was exploring a different religion, or someone in my, you know what I mean? And how might I deal with them? And I genuinely don't think any of those would cause the same amount of hurt and pain that it does when someone's exploring their gender, and then sexuality second. And so I think part of it is just allowing folks to really see that for what it is. And I think it's also just allowing, like, it's about just hearing people and saying, yes, and like, if someone is telling me this is their experience, I'm owning that for them. I'm saying yes. And I could say, I can ask another question, I can follow up with that, but just say yes. So when kids say, you know, I don't want to be called handsome, or I don't want to be called pretty, just saying yes. And then moving on through that, you know, this is the name that I want, or whatever, like this is, or whatever they're saying, allowing them to have space for that. And the last thing, one of the most interesting conversations I had with young people was actually at a high school, a bunch of freshmen, and we're talking about sex education and all of these things. And I'm like, what's the one thing you would want your parents to know? And they're like, really, you would want to know more about them. What high school was like for them. Did they have crushes? How did they navigate the world? And I thought that was such a beautiful sentiment. So sometimes, instead of asking all of these questions and trying to be a supporter for someone, maybe just sharing your story, again, checking your gender, sharing your story with gender, sharing your story with your sexual orientation, sharing your traumas appropriately, sharing your healing, and offering that up, teaching them that role model of what it is like. I think that's another way where we can support people, and pretty much so in an open way, and knowing the people that we're sharing with, knowing what they want from us, asking them, what do you want from me? Not tell me who you are, but what do you want? Like, what sort of relationship do you want to have? That's pretty much it. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful listening to you all.
Awesome. I just want to say thank you. What a privilege to be in the room with y'all, right? Yes, I'm watching you all and your various things. So this is a really deep privilege, like hood rat to head wrap. If you don't know about it, like, please, I was just like, nah, 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 nah. That's me just like going through the and the next one and the next one and the next one. Okay, so I'm grateful to be here. So to answer this question, I've seen that a lot of people place value on understanding, right? But I don't understand. Listen here, you may never understand whatever it is. I may never understand. People talked about K-pop. I don't really know about K-pop. Not that I dislike it. I don't know about it that much, right? So what if I got into it and was like, I don't really understand. So it's okay if I don't understand. It's okay. There's a whole lot of stuff I don't understand, and in this lifetime may not have capacity to get to understand. There's a whole lot of things happening in the world right now. I may never know about them, or there might be some things like spirit we just don't understand. But you know what? So what? So what? If I don't understand it, so what? I can respect it. Can I respect it? You don't have to understand. You don't have to kick it. You don't have to get down with it. It doesn't have to be your thing. Nina Simone said, you don't have to live next to me. Just give me my equality, right? You don't have to understand to respect. And so, like, listen, I'm not waiting around for you to understand. Just respect. And I think if people just could get to that, maybe you'll never understand. Can you respect it anyhow? Can you respect people anyhow, whether you ever understand? Which requires getting over oneself, right? Get over it. Nobody's going to wait for you to understand. They're living their lives. As Erica said, you know, you're living your life. Maybe people will get with you or not, but it's like you're living it and you are real and valid, beyond transactions. Thanks, y'all.
So I just want to thank everyone for participating in this panel with me today, and Kevin for moderating a beautiful panel. I learned so much from this evening. And I just want to say that it's just important to show up, really show up intentionally. And I think like lead with love and lead with like community in mind as we really try to make our community a better place for everyone. And I feel like that's like a common theme throughout this panel. And like a lot of the work that we do and the critique that we have is that we want our community to be better, and we want the health of our community to be everlasting and forever. And the only way we're going to achieve that is by having these tough conversations and healing ourselves and working towards communal healing. So it was a pleasure and an honor to share this space with everyone. And I hope everyone got something out of this. And if they didn't, I hope you continue searching for what you were looking for.
Am I audible? I'm not sure. Somebody
Yeah,
please
we
tell
can
me.
hear you. We can hear you.
So I feel like some sort of omnipresent energy with no image now. I want to thank the four of you for the dynamism with which you walk in the world, because it is a beautiful thing to have lived, 5.5 decades, all of them as a Black gay identified man, and to meet to lights like you, the fires like you. They talked about, Baldwin talked about the fire this time, not the next time, this time. And there is just a light and a force of energy in this space. And I love that we are the manifestation of the fullness of gender, period, and two things I want to just offer to the space really quickly, and I'm thankful for this. One is if you're really trying to get somebody, to know someone, call me by my name. Get to know Spirit. Get to know Amanda. Get to know Gia. Get to know Erica. You often use pronouns when you're talking about a person. As an English major, I can't think of many conversations that you're having with a person where you're using a preposition, a pronoun, and you're talking to the actual person. So I'm looking forward to holding space with each of you, or conversations. I wanted to, I said to Gia earlier when we were having this conversation, but just said it to her privately, and I want to say it publicly, many times offering myself in space to younger people, especially young queer men, they have nothing in mind but commodity. And so they don't know how to take advantage of the opportunity before them, because they think daddy want daddy. I'm trying to be father figure. I'm not trying to be daddy. I've got children. I'm good. And so to be able to walk in this space, where I'm always safe with my offspring. I don't know how to use, and to be able to ferociously live a life long enough where Kuchi Chagulia isn't just a Kwanzaa. It's self-determination. Call me what I say, call me, and I believe you said it earlier, Amanda, if I get married, I'm Mr. Jackson now, there's a woman whose video just went viral because she had to scream at the council chair who refused to call her doctor. Well, miss, it's doctor. And now he's fired. So maybe some folks need to get fired in their daily life, in their daily walks with us, so that they can see the intention with which we move. But Kuchi Chagulia is real. It's self-determination, and it really means call me by my name. And living in a family where my brother Gregory Allen Taylor one day came home and told us he was a Muku Abdul Akwama, and that just was what it was, and it is what it is. And we know this because the truth is, if anybody should get taking somebody else's name off of you, Black folks should. That's all I meant to say.
The whole word.
God bless you. Good night.
Well, thank you so much, panel. Oh, we needed this so desperately. I want to tell you that at NJPAC, we recently formed a LGBTQ employee resource group. And they were so happy when we told them about, we wanted to have this panel, and they really supported and promoted that. So we are all learning, and I appreciate your honesty, but also your compassion. Thank you so much for that. Kevin, you're a great moderator. You just wove your thread neatly and gave us enough space where everyone could share what they had in their hearts. And of course, I want to thank the documentary Kiki for giving us a solid foundation where we can really think about this in a smart way. So thank you again. We hope we'll see you, all of you, at some of our upcoming events. Just want to mention there's a few things that some of our audience might be interested in. We have our Wellness Wednesday. We're going to have another Indian dance class this Wednesday. We have open mic, Jersey Fresh at Home. We have the Creators Room, which talk about the artistic experience. And then next month, in May, we're going to have a panel to address the surge of violence against our Asian American community. That'll be on May 10th. These are all on the website, and of course we promote on social media. We welcome you to continue this journey of discovery and learning as we address social justice topics and what we can do to transform, change, disrupt. So please, everyone, have a great, great evening. Thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.